Ooh, let's kick it all down to Baton Rouge because, man, the Tigers have just been on a heater here recently. Brian Kelly has got a ton of momentum there in Baton Rouge. His first, what's it been, a month or so on the job. And he's winning hearts and minds, it certainly seems like, because we've got a trio of defensive players committed to returning next season to play for Brian Kelly. Jay Ward, outstanding defensive back, 69 tackles, 2 interceptions, and a forced fumble last season. He will return instead of going to the NFL. Senior defensive end Ollie Gay, who was one of the better pass rushers there for LSU, when healthy, he is returning for another season. That's huge. And senior linebacker Mika Bakerville, he is also back. He's played 40 games, over 170 tackles in his LSU career. So, hey, great news. And that's before, I teased it on the last episode, some of these transfer portal additions. I think on the next episode, we're going to do a little bit deeper dive on the transfer portal and how that's all shaken out. But right now, LSU, if you go by 24/7 Sports, they rate transfer portal classes now. LSU's got the number one transfer portal class in the country, and they've got more room to grow. And they just added the former Missouri lineman Makai Wingo, who was all SEC freshman team. This is the guy that his former high school coach is down here at LSU on the coaching staff now, coaching defensive back. So Wingo was a really good get. They also land an interesting prospect here, former East Tennessee State offensive tackle Tremont Shorts, who was an FCS All-American. He'll be down there. He'll be in Baton Rouge next season competing on the offensive line, and those are just some of the latest additions to the transfer portal for LSU. And that, I'll run down the list here of some of these guys we've mentioned, some we have at offensive tackle. Miles Frazier from Florida International. Noah Kane is a name SEC fans that follow recruiting know, from running back from Penn State. We've talked about Kyron Lacey, the Louisiana receiver, their go-to receiver last year. Linebacker Wes Weeks from Virginia. Louisiana defensive back Mekhi Garner. Razorbacks from Arkansas, Greg Brooks, and safety Joe Fouché, of course. Punter Jay Bramplett from Notre Dame. He was Notre Dame's starting punter. And they even got a long snapper down there, Slade Roy from East Carolina. So that is something that Brian Kelly talked about during the LSU bowl game against Kansas State. Let's kick it over to Brian Kelly's comments real quick. It's basically a play-by-play of what's happened.
Is my job, and we'll go to work on that, and we've been working on it. And when I get obviously my chance to work with this football team in January when school begins, we'll set those standards.
Well, you've had builds before with the transfer portal now, because you mentioned it. Like, this team was winning a national championship not long ago. With that new dynamic, does that change the element of the build? Does it make it harder, or is it easier?
Well, in this instance, unfortunately, from my perspective, I would love to build everything through your freshman class and develop your football team that way. But we are going to have to use the transfer portal, and this will have to be a transitional build this first year through the transfer portal. But moving forward, I want to build this football team through your freshmen. Obviously, the freshman players that you bring in and you develop, but we're going to have to use the transfer portal, so it is a little easier.
So I just wanted to give this guy some credit because, it's early in his tenure, but he's already doing what he said he would get done. Really attack this transfer portal. That's what you got to do. Now, you shouldn't have to do it every year if you're LSU, but when you got a coaching change, similar like we're seeing Billy Napier down there in Gainesville, there's obviously going to be some attrition, so you attack this transfer portal. The Gators are also one of the best in the transfer portal right now, but, this goes back to a last episode if you missed it. Check out our interview with Adam McClintock, a.k.a. the CFB professor. He loved these hires based on their track record. These guys know how to win at a high level everywhere they've been, and now they're starting to – it's very, very early. I understand that. They haven't won a damn game in the SEC, but they're laying the foundation for what their programs are going to be. They're winning in recruiting, both at the high school level and, more importantly, for next season in the transfer portal, because they're landing players that are going to be immediate impact players next season, their first year. So, Hey, if I'm an LSU fan, I'm pretty fired up about recent events down in Baton Rouge.